We are live. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hi.
Hi. Who's gonna kick off? Who's gonna kick off? You or me?
Yeah, I can. Let me just
go ahead.
Let me just get the get it up on the screen so I can see what we're doing. Okay, so hang on. I don't think it's live on my channel. Is it? Yes.
Yeah. I can hear you.
Yeah, we're live. Yeah, I can see it's live. Right. Yeah. So in the last week or so, there's a huge amount happened, isn't there?
It seems like always things are happening, Lee. Always. Craziness.
Hang on, let's just get rid of my volume on. Let's just mute
my
Mark. Sound on my
Michael Lilly.
Laptop. Sorry.
Hey, Daniel. Hey, Vicente.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm good now. So yeah, there's a lot happened over the last week to 10 days, and I'd like us to perhaps have a chat about basically what's happened and how we think that China have been involved in this. I sort of saw some information that the US were sort of almost pleading with China. There'd been about 5 phone calls made to sort of have a word with the Russians to try and stop them doing this. And China kind of said, well, hang on, this is a problem of your making. You sort it out for yourself. I just wonder what you perhaps think of that from an American angle.
Well, okay, so just hello everybody that's on Nuance that's seen me. This is the first video in like a year, maybe, I don't know, a very long time. And we are simul broadcasting on the Barrett channel as well as Nuance. So hello everybody. And I've been in America now for over 6 months. I think it's been over 6 months now. Has it been over 6 months, Lee, since I've been here? I think so.
It has been over 6 months. Yeah, definitely. You've been gone maybe 8 months almost.
Yeah. Jeez, it's been a while. And
time goes fast, man.
It does. But this is a very interesting place to be during this point in time, because especially because I have so many friends in China and I have so many friends in the States, and I've been living here, and so I'm hearing the voices on the ground here as well as the voices on the ground in China. And I don't know, it's the way that I see this whole situation is there's a pressure brought on to Russia, like a fear of encroaching Western powers, and then you have did you hear that?
I saw it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then you have the fear of Russia getting, its power diminished. It's a power play. And then you have China, which is, at least in regards to a lot of these sorts of major conflicts, they're sort of, especially with Russia, they're sort of just being non-interventionist. And you can at least appreciate and understand that they're sort of in a difficult situation with regards to energy resources and relationships with Russia. I think they're committal to giving the thumbs up to the invasion is very telling to their stance in this whole situation. It's almost a tacit, I wish you wouldn't do this, Russia, by saying that we're not going to say what you're doing is great. But I don't think that they're going to I don't think there's any way that anybody can pressure China into going and saying and having a conversation with Russia and saying, could you please back down? I just don't see that happening, because I don't think Russia would really take the advice anyways.
Yeah, I also think it's unlikely China will outright say to Russia that this is wrong, what you've done. Although they sort of imply that. I think we see from the sort of Xi Jinping Putin meeting just before the Winter Olympics started, or as the Winter Olympics was starting, that Russia and China have definitely formed a stronger alliance. And I think the reason they've done that is because they both feel they're under attack from the US. So I feel that although China don't, support what Russia have done, they also haven't been openly condemning it. And if you notice the resolution they had at the United Nations Security Council, China, along with India actually, and the Middle East, abstained from that. But a lot of people are sort of taking that as a signal that they're supporting it. And I don't think that's the case. I don't think they're supporting it.
I don't think they've said we support it. I mean, that's,
No. But I think the signal of them abstaining is being taken by a lot of Westerners. I mean, on Twitter, that Russia is China are backing Russia to in that invasion. I don't think that's the case. And you've also got a lot of people who are trying to sort of make similarities with Taiwan. And I think that's ridiculous, because I think Taiwan's a completely different issue to the sort of Ukraine-Russia issue. Trying to put them together as the same issue, I just think is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really different to, the situation in Russia. Here's the way I think of it. And, it's hard on me because, I mean, it's hard on me. It's not hard on any of us. I mean, we're not there. But, I would have to say that without a doubt, all of my friends here are extremely pro-America, Ukraine's independence and anti-Russia, let's just say. And then, and a lot of my friends in China, and I wouldn't even say 100%, but a lot of my friends in China are very supportive of the move of Russia against the West via this conflict in Ukraine. And so you can't win. you can't win by making some sort of an argument on your side. But what I think is that you have this situation, for example, in China. And China has gone off and invested heavily in the world via strategic business negotiations and infrastructure projects. They've gone out there and they've made an impact in the world by saying, hey, these countries in Africa, hey, these countries in South America, hey, all of these countries, we're gonna help you to modernize. We're gonna help you come into this new world that we're in with Huawei and all of our technology and all of our nobody can build railroads like China. I think that is undisputable. Maybe Japan can build pretty good, but China can do it quicker, and they've got it down, And so they go off into the world and they're doing all these things. If you were sitting there now and you were looking at China and America, you would have to, and you were open-minded to the way that we know China, you know what I mean? You would have to say, you know what, I might choose China in some circumstances. I see them doing a lot of good in the world and this and that. Whereas I don't see the same efforts being perpetrated on the side of Russia. And maybe I'm under American propaganda, as an American, who knows? But the way I see it is Russia is not doing themselves any favors. If they wanted to have the sphere of influence grow on their part into Ukraine and strengthen their relationship with Ukraine and everything, going in and doing this sort of conflict isn't doing them any favors. Going out and I mean, they have built pipeline to Russia and they're doing some things, but I don't see them doing this sort of look at us, look at what we're doing. Do you want to be part of our team or do you want to be part of their team? It's more or less this sort of ham-handed violent movement. And I don't see what's happening in Ukraine as any help for Russia. And I don't see it in any way that strengthens Russians' place in the world with regards to try to promote their ideas of what they think is right, and how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I kind of see your point, but I think the reason Russia haven't done that, they for many years they haven't had the money to do that like China have. China have a lot of reserves, way more than Russia. Okay, in the last few years, Russia have sort of got a bit richer, but for years and years after the collapse of the Soviet Union, they have been pretty poor. So I think they haven't had their. I do agree that they're doing themselves no favors. But what I would also say is that I find it amazing, and I'm getting the feeling now, the more I see that a lot of this backlash against Russia is coming from a sort of relatively small group of countries, and that's Europe, the USA, primarily Australia and Japan. I think a lot of the other countries, and I mean, one that's really surprised me is India have not sort of condemned them, and yet, up until recently, we've believed India as part of this Quad were firmly on the American side, but they've kind of split from that. And just going on to you mentioned that the West sees Russia as bad, and I always have, but I think that's because of the propaganda from Western media that I've been subject to for the whole of my life. I mean, I come out with an admission here. When the Iraq war, before that sort of started, I was all on board with that. I was like, yeah, we need to kick that shithead out of Iraq. That guy's a baddie, because I bought into all the propaganda, man. And I look back and I can't believe that now. I think, wow, because I've researched and I've looked, and I think this is the problem nowadays. There's too much propaganda, and that's not just from one side, that's from all sides. And just moving that on slightly, I see that, the whole of Europe, and I believe now the USA has pretty much put a ban on a lot of the news coming out of Russia, RT and Sputnik, and, CGTN had the same thing happen to them last year in the UK. And I actually think, from reading news now, I think those channels are actually less biased than some of the mainstream media. I think you said something to me the other day, Matt, which really made me think. You said news programs in the USA are not news programs anymore. They're entertainment programs. And I think that's a really, really interesting comment.
It's funny.
That the UK is also moving that way.
Yeah, everything is a show. It's not a broadcast, right? Because when you were younger, it was the broadcast is 7:00 tonight. We're going to talk about the invasion of Iraq and So it was very formal. It was an information delivery system. It wasn't necessarily meant to scare you, although it sort of was. I mean, there's always the bombings in the streets of Baghdad today. But it wasn't. Terror and carnage in Baghdad, and let's sensationalize everything. And I probably wouldn't even realize how sensationalized it was without spending so much time in China, because as much as people think that China is the king of propaganda, it's like in China you see
actually, they're not.
you see it though. I mean, the propaganda is tanks shooting missiles. And in a couple of it's very, very overt. It's very, very, standardized. And none of it is like America is bad. It's more or less China is strong. Like China likes to do the China is strong propaganda, which is like, we are big and powerful and we've got a great military and a lot of people singing anthems and stuff like this. But I don't think I have ever on media in China, official, not Twitter and all of this stuff, but actually in the official TV, ever seen anybody degrade America? Have you ever seen it? I've never seen it.
One thing I would also say is, from my opinion, I find the news outlets in China are much more factual. There's no dressing. It's obviously a crime here to spread fake news. So I generally think, although, as you rightly say, it is propagandist in a way, but like you say, they don't go around degrading all other countries. And if you look at news they report on foreign countries in China, it's generally very factual. If you follow CGTN over the last week, it'll be news about, there's some peace talks going on. This is what this guy said. This is what that guy said. They don't massively sensationalize everything. so I think it's kind of interesting where, for years and years and years, the West has sort of demonized China, saying, oh, you're not open, you're not allowing your citizens to have access to news from the West. But, look what's happened in the last few days, that the West have cut off a lot of
media, I've heard a lot of this argument, but there are many forms of censorship in Russia too, and in China, and in America, and in the West. I do see it as a problem, like cutting off certain agencies from speaking. I know RT was shut down in America. Are you all right over there? Yeah. Can you hear me? Lee, you're frozen. Can everybody hear me? Oh, I think Lee just left us, but he'll be back. Yeah. So I was just thinking, you have to, before you start criticizing one side, you have to look at both sides. And I don't think that, Lee's gone. You could just see me, right? How is my audio? I think my audio is okay. This is my first live stream in such a long time. I miss you guys. I need to do more of these. If you guys don't know, I'm building where are you? I'm going to send him a message. Lee, Earth to Lee. We lost you, buddy. I've just commandeered Lee Barrett's channel. It's all mine. All mine. Okay, here he is. He's back.
I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. I got some issue going on where my laptop was saying it was low on juice.
You know what's funny is we were just talking about censorship, and you just disappeared your ass away.
But you're right. That there is censorship in China, but they're not.
And Russia, Russia.
They don't deny that. But the West, these are, we're the beacon of free speech and democracy. So it's a bit hypocritical then that they ban all these sort of news that goes against their narrative. China make no secret that they censor stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's different because the West do. The West are always, we want to bring democracy all around the world, but it's not a very democratic move, I feel, to then block media with an alternative narrative. That's the way I'd argue it.
Well, and I would side with you in the fact that America prints a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, you can talk about kids being sold out of the basement of a pizza parlor. You can talk about all sorts of really, really crazy stuff that leads to like real violence, and RT gets shut down. So, I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like if you're going to let people get all crazed up about QAnon, then what's so bad about letting people decide what they want to believe by seeing both sides of a story with RT? You know what I mean? So it's sort of hypocritical on the side of America to do that. But my biggest thing is that just because America has problems doesn't mean that Russia is perfect. And I think that there's a lot of people out there that simply because they want to hate the West, that they want to support whatever Russia is doing. And that's sort of my feeling, in this whole thing. The invasion of Ukraine is tragic, and there's real lives being lost and people having to leave their, refugee crisis. And there's a lot of problems. And beyond that, there's a lot of other things in the world that nobody seems to give two shits about, like Yemen and
this is
famine in the world. It's crazy,
this is something else that I find just crazy interesting, Matt, is that you look at over the last, 20, 30 years, the amount of incursions have been of other countries by NATO and the US and the sort of Western alliance. And none of them have got anywhere near the backlash of this current crisis. And I find that incredible. It's like Yemen hardly ever appears in the Western press anymore. Somalia, having the shit bombed out of them at the moment very little in the Western press. And like, look at all the sanctions that have been, levied on Russia. It's like, I just find it unbelievable how much sanctions have been applied to Russia. Yet, the Western alliance have done a lot worse than this and not had a fraction of those sanctions applied to them. That's something I find very odd.
It's funny. I always like to switch roles, I mean, what if you saw in the news that Russia had an occupation in Afghanistan instead of America, and when they pulled out, as they were pulling out, the Russians drone striked one of their aid workers and killed 11 of their family, and just sort of swept it under the carpet, And I'm not saying that Russia hasn't done some dirty things, but I'm just saying that the perception of one side versus the other is really, really wide. And I think that one thing that could have been a better tactic, and listen, I'm not Putin, I'm not Biden, and I'm not Xi Jinping, but what I believe is, and I'm not Zelensky, and I'm not a comedian, what I think is that Russia could take the tactic of saying, "Hello world, I am Vladimir Putin. Today, I am going to make a bigger effort to let the world know how great Russia is. I'm going to stamp out corruption. I'm going to get rid of oligarchies. I'm going to invest more in social welfare programs. I'm going to invest more in poverty alleviation. I'm going to build amazing cities." I know that their budget doesn't support as much as China, but they could move. There is a lot of money kept up in the hands of very few in Russia. And if he was to make Russia more appealing to Ukraine, to the vast amounts of public in Ukraine, maybe that would have been a better tactic than going in guns a-blazing and saying, "We're going to rescue you." That's just my thought.
Yeah, I mean, I do see that, but I'm of the sort of my opinion is I think Putin was really, really pushed into a corner. The EU and the Ukraine have been messing around over the Minsk II agreement for 8 years, and I think the EU and the US together have to shoulder some of the blame, because they could have, I feel, prevented this by pushing Ukraine a little bit harder to agree to the conditions. I mean, that was agreed by the Normandy 4, I believe, the Minsk II agreement, and they just left it and left it and left it. And even, Mearsheimer and a couple of other academics says, look, if you don't address this, Russia will react. They had plenty of warnings, and I feel they just didn't act on those warnings. So I think that's why they should shoulder some of the blame. Again, like you, I don't agree that it's right what Russia have done. I definitely don't. But I feel that there was very.
Thanks for that, Die Zero.
Russia really had the hand forced in a way, because I feel that. And let me just finish. I feel that Putin was thinking, well, how long is this going to go on? If I don't make a stand, nothing's going to happen. At least, and I think this is a reason why, there's a lot of talk now about that. Russia are losing the sort of battle. I actually think personally they've gone in quite soft. I think there's no doubt that Russia could have absolutely annihilated Ukraine if they'd wanted. They have hundreds of thousands of troops. They have an army which is significantly bigger than the Ukraine's. But I feel as though they've gone in quite strategically. And my thinking is that they've taken out a lot of the military stuff of Ukraine's major cities. I think this is then forced Ukraine to come to the negotiating table, which you've actually seen. And it's almost as like Russia saying, okay, we've now forced you to the negotiating table. If we can negotiate a settlement, we'll back off. But this is what we want. We want neutrality. We want to guarantee that you're not going to join NATO, and we want you to get rid of the extreme right. I can't say that word because it will cause a problem on YouTube, but we all know what we're talking about when we talk about the extreme right faction within Ukraine. And I think if Ukraine agree to those conditions, personally, I think Russia will back off.
I mean, how many countries in this world right now have an extreme right, you'll say? A lot? Quite a few?
A lot do. However,
Poland,
Matt, they're not endorsed by the states. They're not a part of the state army. That's the difference. They're explicitly a unit in the Ukraine army.
Yeah, but what makes it Russia's responsibility to go into that country and force them? Aren't they doing almost what Russia is angry at America for doing, for pushing NATO in countries where they're like extending? You're like, Russia needs to go in there and force Russia, the peace or whatever they want to enforce in Ukraine. Because why? Well, because the West is forcing their the two wrongs don't make a right. Correct me if I'm wrong. Nobody has sent a missile or a bomb into Russia from the West yet. I mean, obviously there's weapons poised, but I don't think it gives. You were talking about an analogy, right? When we were just before we went on, right? And explain to me that analogy. Explain that to me.
Okay, you live in this street and there's 20 houses, and there's a guy in one of the houses and he's got a huge cannon in his backyard. And he's systematically taking these houses out along your road one day at a time. One each day. And he's getting closer to you. And every time he takes a house out, he does it in the night and he kills all the people in there. And he's getting closer and closer to you. Yeah. And you know that in 4 days' time, it's going to be your turn. What do you do? Do you just sit there and go, okay, well, I'm going to be dead in 4 days' time? Or do you take him out before he gets to you?
Well, that analogy is very flawed in the aspect that you're saying that as he's moving house to house near to you, he is killing. There is no Western genocide of people progressing towards Russia.
No, but Putin saw it that the far right factions of Ukraine were killing those people in the Donetsk region, and that's undeniable. I think even the UN have said there was 13 or 14,000 people killed in the last 8 or so years since 2014. And
then don't
they're
you have
seen as Russian people?
Then why isn't there a bigger movement to provide support to that specific thing? I mean, if you look at what's happening in Ukraine, it is a complete. Now, okay, first of all, we all know that Russia really wants Ukraine back under its umbrella. That's undeniable, right? It's in his memoirs, it's in his speeches. He has said it, he wants this. And so there is a tragedy going on in Donetsk. I'm sorry, my pronunciation is bad, but in that area.
We know what you mean.
Yeah. And well, how does a invasion, which is happening, I mean, if you look at that, it's an invasion. How does that justify okay, there have been tragedy, even when we've had large scale wars and had actual genocides like Rwanda and things like this. There is a diplomatic way to affect change and try to, maybe the messaging was off. Maybe something was going wrong, but it certainly doesn't warrant the amount of action on this whole thing. Maybe there should have been more push to expose the atrocities going on in that area. But I don't know.
I still think the aim is those regions, but I think, like I said, I think if Russia had wanted to go and take the whole of Ukraine, now this is just my assessment right now. It could change. I think they could have easily took the whole of Ukraine. Russia have a fairly powerful military. I think way more powerful than Ukraine. But I think they've gone in on a very strategic basis. I think they've taken out a lot of the Ukraine military, in different parts of Ukraine. But I still see the major movement is around that Donetsk area. And I think what they've done, like I just said recently, I think they've tried to bring, we see that talks are now ongoing with Ukraine in Belarus. I'm not sure whether Belarus is the right place, and I would hope, and it seems from a lot of the diplomatic phone calls that have been going on, China is sort of operating a bit behind the scenes here. There was some comments made by Zelensky team that he's looking forward to China brokering or negotiating a ceasefire. So I think China are having probably more to do with this situation behind the scenes.
It would be a pretty, I don't think that they will, but it would be a pretty smart move, I think, if China was able to get in there and broker some sort of a peace. It would provide them with a opportunity to have a leadership role in the cessation of a really, honestly, it's a quagmire right now.
It is. It's a very
at the moment right now,
situation.
it's a quagmire. So
it is. I'd agree with that.
I was thinking. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go on. Keep going.
No, your analogy. Like back to your analogy, you were saying like if your neighbors are encroaching but I don't think that they're slowly murdering people as they're getting closer to you. I think the right wing or the that whole N-word sort of craziness is a problem is a problem with regards to a lot of the world today. And it's crazy in my mind, side story, that we can be in this technological age where we can all be united if we want. And I don't think we've been divided like this in such a long time. It's very, very sad, but anyways.
Shall we move the conversation on to maybe the sanctions part of things and have a talk about that, how that might affect China and that? So, do you want to just finish off about the analogy thing first? Because let me
first of all, Haley, I hope you're super healthy like a bull, and that's very nice, Mansana.
Thanks, Mansana. Let me just before you move on to that, let me just give people a quick update. So
yes, tell them.
The last 2 or 3 weeks, I've had a bit of a rough time from the side effects of the chemo. I had my last but one chemo yesterday, and I will have my last one next Thursday. And then the doctor says it might take about 3 weeks to a month for all the side effects to work themselves out of your body. But I have recently recorded a video for the channel, which will be up in the next sort of 5 to 6 days, which gives you a complete update of my situation. But I have good days like today. I'm feeling good and very sort of sprightly, but I also have my bad days. I've had a few days where I just struggle to even get out of bed, but it's sort of up and down on a daily basis at the moment. So that's me. But go on about the analogy, Matt.
Everybody send some love to Lee over there. I'm really glad to see you on the up and up. If you guys don't know, me and Lee are really good friends, and we have been for quite some time. And so we've been. If I was in China right now, I would be hanging out with you. We wouldn't have this. We wouldn't have this line right here. We'd be building some Lego things.
Oh yeah. Oh, Lego. Yeah, there's some new Lego.
For those of you that don't know, Lee loves Legos.
Yeah, you can see it all in the background. But these are 2 models I'll be working on later. We've got a Lotus, a Ferrari. Oh, it's not focusing. And we've got a Lotus. So I'm going to build those later today. So
good. Well, let me also add to the conversation that I am not as fluently understanding of the situation in Russia and Ukraine as I am, say, of maybe some situations around my areas of China and my life in America. So, I am speaking as a person who wants to understand the nuance and that has opened his mind, maybe more than most Westerners, but that also has his own opinions. And we need to allow people to express their own opinions so that we can kind of understand each other. So, but as far as the analogy goes, my thing is that if I thought more about lawn care, right? If you have a neighbor that's a block away and he has a sod company, he has lawn company, like he sells lawnmowers and he sells sod. And then you have you who live there, and I'll be Russia in this example. And then you have me who specializes in waterless features, big rocks and cactus and, really nice gravel colors and all sorts of stuff. Then your friend starts selling tractors and sod to all the neighbors. And pretty soon there's more green coming. And so that green is sort of coming and coming and coming. And you're like, hey, man, I like my way. It's like less water. It's good for the environment. And there's these rocks and cactuses and stuff. Until, you can't go and start burning other people's lawns because you don't like the onslaught of this lawn care from your big neighbor who's profiting from big war and all of that stuff. The lawn is war in this example. Lawn is weapons. You know what I mean? And so the lawn is coming closer and closer until, in my opinion, until that grass starts growing on your property. You don't have any right to go to your neighbor's lawn and start throwing acid on it and killing it. You know what I mean? And that's and that might be where we completely disagree. And I know, but that's the way that I see it in my head.
Sure. I'd just like to thank everybody that have sent in super chats. I have a problem with my StreamYard where I can't put the comments onto the screen for some reason. Yeah. There you go.
You just tell me, Lee, I'll pull it up. Okay.
So RR Bema, thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. I've been following the Ukraine war since 2014. Don't miss the Ukraine 8 years genocide that ramped up today as well. Okay, so I wouldn't say it was necessarily a genocide. I think genocide is a word that has started to get used a bit too often. But I would agree that there's definitely been an issue where a lot of people have been killed by the Ukrainian far-right forces in that area of Ukraine, that Donbass region. And just as a shout out, there's a guy, I don't know, I can't remember whether he's American or Canadian, but he's a guy named Patrick Lancaster. Now, if you search him out on YouTube, he's actually married to a local Ukrainian. He documents it, he's completely independent. And, he's got some pretty good videos on his channel. He's actually there on the ground and, he's showing what's really going on there, and he's pretty good. So it might be worth checking his channel out. Let's move on to the economic. As I sort of mentioned earlier, the sanctions that predominantly Western nations, Europe, UK, America, Japan, and Australia that have levied against Russia is just unprecedented. They've sanctioned big parts of the SWIFT system. They've even sanctioned Russia's central bank. Now, this was against the advice of the big banks on Wall Street, the big banks in the EU, and the Federal Reserve of all people. They told the government not to do this, and they've still gone ahead and done it. And I just find it amazing that the Western alliances, all the sort of shit that they've created around the world over the years and continue to do so, the sanctions that have been applied against Russia, I mean, it's just absolutely crazy in my mind. Even that, we're seeing stuff on social media that this morning, the IOCs are even now advising or saying that the Ukrainians and Russians mustn't take part in the Paralympics. Holy shit! This is just. But getting back to the economic sanctions, what I would say is that if you look at some of you look at India and China, right, make up 2.7 billion people. They both have said that they're not going to apply sanctions to Russia. And I wonder here, and I actually made a video on my other channel last night about this, is that sometimes I feel as that these Western nations have almost sort of trying to compete against each other of who can apply the most sanctions to Russia and who can do it the quickest. And I don't feel they're thinking some of the more medium to longer term consequences to their general public. And now the example I'll give, so we've seen energy prices soar over the last week because of this. Now, this is going to feed through into the pockets of people in the UK very soon with higher energy bills, higher fuel. Petrol at the pumps in the UK has reached £1.50 a litre. That's nearly about $10 a gallon in the UK.
Let me
and
see
this
that.
is going to have huge implications. And I just finished, and I just wonder how. I see a lot of the British people really cheering on all these sanctions against Russia. And I wonder how much cheering they're going to be doing in 6 months' time when they're all hundreds of pounds a month worse off because there's this massive rush to impose all these sanctions on Russia for what they've done. And yet these sanctions have not been applied to other Western nations when they've committed atrocities that are hundreds of times worse than what's happened here with Russia.
Yeah. I mean, do you see the comment I put down from Manzana? I mean, that's, if what's good for the goose apparently isn't good for the gander, right? I mean, so
it's just such double standards. I feel.
Yeah. I mean, that's. I talk to Daniel a lot about sanctions. Daniel Dumbrill has a really nice perspective on it, and the fact that sanctions have no purpose other than to depress and the average people in a country. It really doesn't move the needle much with regards to actually enforcing change. It just ends up hurting people. But what do you think would be okay? Let's just throw this out, Lee, and I'm curious about what you would think. What is the feasible fix here? What do you think could do this and make everybody,
The feasible fix is to, I think, all nations, instead of imposing sanctions, because all these sanctions are doing is they're making Russia more determined, And I think the Western nations should be doing things to try and diffuse the situation and bring, making a lot more effort. All I see is at the moment is the West applying sanctions and promising more weapons to Ukraine. Blinken's or whoever's done it in the US just hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars of more weapons to be sent to Ukraine. Really, that's not helping the situation. They should be encouraging people to get around the negotiate table and going out their way to do that, diffuse the situation as much as possible. By announcing, British, we're sending more weapons. America announced we're sending more weapons, more troops. Some idiot politician in the EU even suggested, what we'll do, we'll send a load of fighter aircraft to Poland and start, launching Ukrainian pilots from Poland. Okay, they quickly got rid of that idea when they realized that Russia would then start responding to NATO countries because they'd see it as a direct attack from other countries, which is obvious, And I just feel that, and you mentioned sanctions hurt the normal people. The only reason I feel they're putting these sanctions, they're pushing for regime change in Russia. So they want to, get all the public riled up in Russia to basically kick Putin out. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but that's been exactly the playbook in Iran, in Venezuela, in Cuba. All these financial sanctions, the only people that are going to suffer, Putin and the government are not going to suffer. The rich people in Russia are not going to suffer. It's going to be the average working people who are going to suffer. And, the West keep going on, we care for the people, But by imposing those sanctions, they're going to harm those people they say they care for. So it's a dichotomy. But I think they must try and persuade both sides to negotiate and just keep on with that until a settlement is reached. I think that's the only way.
It's, I just okay, so you have hypocrisy, right? So you have America has carte blanche and the West has carte blanche to invade the Middle East under guise of weapons of mass destruction or whatever. Saudi Arabia has carte blanche to go into Yemen and do what they're doing there. And it seems like, the Saudi Arabia is getting weapons, getting supplied by the West. It's like
the UK and the US,
there's money being made. There's money literally being made on the backs
That's
of
a good point.
These horrors, as opposed to what's happening now in Russia, which is sanctions. Now, there was a comment I had just seen that said it's passive. Sanctions are passive, and the actual act of killings and invasion is not passive. It's overt. And I would much rather see the use of some sort of a sanction rather than a killing. You know what I mean? Like, so if you were to weigh certain things, so like if sanctions could be put upon America to stop supplying weapons to Saudi Arabia so that they can wage this or whatever, I would have been, even as an American, obviously, as an American, I don't want to see my tax dollars going to war, period. I don't want to see, I hate the fact that as I'm calculating my taxes, I know that some of those dollars are going to go to do despicable things to people that I care about, you know what I mean? Or that I would otherwise care about. And so if coming and hurting the pocketbook of America to slap them into stop doing so much intervention and potentially hurting people work, then I would be unfortunately open to that. I would rather it not need to be happen because I would rather us not do these sorts of military things. So I don't know. I don't even know where I was going with this. Just kind of saying that. Do you agree with what's happening in Ukraine? Has gotten out of hand to the point to where there's a lot of people that are losing their livelihoods and their jobs and their lives, and this country now is in complete disarray. I don't see Ukraine coming out of this feeling like roses. You can't go into a country like this and have them coming out looking stellar, especially when both sides seem in disarray, or especially Russia. It seemed like they had thought that they were going to be able to go into Ukraine with a lot more authority and make a, sort of do what they were going to do and knock whatever they wanted into Ukraine. And it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And so how do you stop this? Because Russia isn't going to stop. They're frustrated, and now they're kind of caught with their pants down a little bit because of the beginning stages of this thing, and they might double down and get even worse. So, how do you okay? What I would like to see is NATO just kind of like trickle back, just come. Let's have a pact. Have all parties come together and say, Putin, I know you're frustrated and everything. Let's just all kind of simmer this thing down, and then we just disassemble some things that have been constructed during an era that doesn't necessarily exist anymore. But I don't see that happening. Yeah, There's no way that's going to happen.
I think you hit the nail on the head in that sort of piece you just said. Is money and weapons, and I see that. Personally, I think a lot of that is driven by the USA because a lot of the policy is directed by the military-industrial complex in the USA, and they must be sitting there at the moment. I think over the last few days, the shares in the main military companies in the US have increased by $69 billion. And
was that did you send me a picture? Did you send me that picture of the differences between the different countries? Was that in a group that we were talking about? There was a really great picture where it showed all the money from different places.
But I think, you've just had Germany announce that they're going to put an extra $100 billion into NATO's defense. Now, you can bet your bottom dollar a large amount of that, and there's other countries announcing increases in spending for NATO, and a large amount of that will be going to the American military industrial complex. And they must be absolutely rubbing their hands together. And I think that's why there's so many warmongers in the West, because a lot of people make a lot of money out of it. And, you know, you've got to think about a lot of that money that those companies make then finds its way into the pockets of the politicians to support their campaigns. So it's kind of a vicious circle. And, you know, I'll just sort of outline, I think, you know, the massive winners in this whole conflict have been the USA. They've stopped the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which is one of their objectives. They're going to see a lot more spending on American weapons, another objective. They've split Russia away from Europe for a long, long time, another one of their objectives. And they're also now trying to drive a wedge between Russia and China. And I see it as a whole sort of big geopolitical thing where, you know, obviously you see all the sanctions that they've put on China, the US and the West, and they've now applied a lot of those sanctions and more to Russia. And I really think it's a whole plan here for the US to keep their dominance. And I feel that to a point, Ukraine have been the ones that have been thrown under the bus in the West's larger geopolitical aims. And I find that very, very sad that I feel they've used Ukraine and sort of thrown them under the bus. You know, they haven't really, they led Ukraine up the path, I feel, to some extent. And then they've just kind of pretty much abandoned them.
Well, I think what the West does, and America in particular, is they try to line their pockets. Everything is a transaction. Money. Every single thing that is done here has less to do with society's improvement and more to be with who's paying who and how do I profit. I mean, the rise of China could have been the rise of China and America. There's no reason why there has to be such a crazy discrepancy now, and this sort of situation in America today. The only way is via the leveraging of finance to some people's advantage and not all. And unfortunately, the some people are oil and military industrial complex, and these big players, because they're the one that are right now funding the governments here in America and in a lot of parts of the West. And so you have to look at everything through that lens, and it's really frustrating. I mean, I'm in Portland in America, and I've been here for a few months building out my van. I'm doing this van build project, and I go out. Literally, I am in one of the nicest parts of Portland, and I can go out my front door and walk, and within 30 seconds, I can be in front of a tent, next to another tent, next to another tent, where an entire series of families are living on the street in a very, very, it would be like, Lee, it would be like walking around Shenzhen and seeing tents on the corner of your street outside your house and people living there.
Whoa.
And to think that we could spend so much money on military, so much money on bombs, and on top of it, be so far ahead of everybody else that does bombs and does military, right? Like, I don't think that no country should have a military for their own self-defense, but we're like literally putting money on top of money with, like, we just approved a budget with almost zero problem, like a huge budget. And meanwhile,
almost $1 trillion, right?
Yeah. And we will bicker like crazy about how we help those people down the street. So we are
that's nuts, man.
It's so twisted here. And so when you look at through that lens, you can kind of say, of course there's this thing going on in Russia. And of course the bleeding hearts in us really want to see the least amount of death, the least amount of problems. But there's all these money-making ventures that are going on that are prompting the real moves. Like you and me talking about this, we're only scratching the surface. The real moves are all the money that's changing hands because of some sort of a contract that's being fulfilled, or whether it's supplying weapons to NATO countries, or because I mean, think about that. Lee, think about if I walked up to you and put $100,000 in your pocket, what would you be willing to do? I mean, you're a human being. You would, you know what I mean? I mean, money talks. Can anybody hear? Can anybody hear Lee? Lee, it sounds like a robot. Is that just me? Does Lee sound like a robot? Lee sounds like a robot to me. Yeah, you still sound like do I sound like a robot?
No, you're good.
Okay, you're back. You're back. Okay. Cyber Lee.
That's all right.
Yeah, that was Cyber Lee. Cyber Lee. Okay. Okay,
so,
cool.
Do you want to pull up some of the super chats and we'll answer some of the questions?
Yeah. I've been showing them.
There's a few coming.
Let me, I wish we could sort the super chats so that we could only see super chats, because that would be nice. There is a start option here, Lee, where I can actually star comments and I can sort them. Okay, so Kelly Y, thank you very much for that super sticker.
Thank you. And
that is nice. And then we got Enoch Shen. What do you guys think about the control of social media and narratives to make Putin and Russia an absolute worst enemy? He could care less, in my opinion. Well,
yeah, I think. Oh, go on. You go ahead first.
No, I was saying I'm in America, and there is no, unless you're on some fringe YouTube channels, there's no real positive talk or even a nuanced discussion of what reasoning Putin has for his actions, whether they are justified or not. Most of it is he's a despot and all of these things, and we need to rescue the Ukrainians, and that's the form. But you got to understand that as an American myself, every movie we watched until I was a teenager was Russia was a bad guy, the Red Scare, so having that it's very easy for America to switch that back on. But it is sort of funny that Putin sort of became a folk hero during the Trump administration. So I bet that there's a lot of confused Trump supporters who are wearing their "I'd rather be a Russian than a Democrat" shirts, and and we lost Lee again. He's going to try and recycle. Sometimes if you recycle, then it can come back better. But yeah, I'm sort of not surprised at the amount of bias in the media, especially today. It's quite crazy. Let's see who else. So let's just keep looking around here while we wait for. Oh, there he comes. There he comes. All right. How's everybody doing today? Can everybody give me a shout out? Who is where? Oh, there he is. There he is.
Thank you, JJ Wang. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that was very nice. That was very nice.
Very generous, and
let's see here.
Just on the social media, I do get concerned. I think that there's always a lot of talk about things being controlled by the Chinese government, and yes, social media is controlled to some extent here by the government. And it kind of makes me smile when, you get the Western world keep pumping out, oh, we're the democracy, it's free speech. Yet as soon as they have things that go against their narrative, they block them. So, I do think there's an issue with social. The bigger issue, though, I feel with social media is the amount of fake news. I mean, there was a pretty big German media company today, and I saw this tweet, and it was using a video from, there was a large explosion here in China a few years ago at a port called Tianjin, in a city called Tianjin. It was a huge explosion. It was massive, and they were using that footage and saying this is a Russian attack on Ukraine. And this wasn't some sort of, small one-man band. This is a major German media outlet. And I think this is disgraceful But the problem is you'll get hundreds and hundreds of people retweeting that without even realizing it. So now you could literally have hundreds of thousands of people thinking, holy shit, look what Russia have done. When it's nothing to do with Russia. You know, we've had videos of planes flying, which were videos taken from military exercise and drills, saying, "Oh, look, these are Russian planes flying in, you know, Ukraine." And I think, you know, social media has become really dangerous in this respect, I feel, because people just share things around so quickly without actually checking the what's the word? The authenticity of what they're actually retweeting. I think that's super dangerous.
Yeah, you know, I just find it so wild that RT and some of these agencies get blocked so quickly, and you can still go on and read these crazy QAnon conspiracies and things perpetrated online, and they just sort of hang on there, and you get like, you know, crazy media agencies that just spew the craziest conspiracy theories that actually influence people to do horrible and despicable and violent things. And, you know, it takes forever if they do get any sort of block. I'm sorting some comments. You want to go through the start of the comments here? So I was able to star them. Okay, so we've got our Brenner. I've been following the Ukraine war since 2014. Don't miss the Ukrainian 8-year. Oh, this was, you talked about this already, right?
Yeah, we've done that one. Yeah, we did.
Okay, I just starred all of them. Yeah. Okay, cool. RT America, the only counterweight to U.S. corporate pro-war media is no more. So.
So just a quick one. If anybody does want to continue to follow RT, it's only been banned pretty much in Western nations. So if you get yourself a VPN, now somebody told me if you download the Opera browser, it has a free VPN built in, and then just log on to a country like you know, the Middle East or Japan. I connect to a Japanese VPN, and I can get all the RT stuff. And I do think it's sad as part of this. A lot of RT journalists have just lost their jobs. And I feel very, there's one particular woman I follow on Twitter, Rachel Blevins, and she's been receiving death threats and you know, potential attacks on her personal safety because she works for RT. And she came out with, in fact, if you go to my other channel, Let's Talk About It, I made a video and there's a clip from her, and she made a video saying, look, you know, of all the media outlets I've worked for, RT have been one of the best. They've let me be very, very they've let me say whatever I wanted. I mean, I very much think the Western media now is pushing the narrative. I mean, you see this in just the BBC in the last few days have started to produce very sort of negative news on India, because India haven't fell into line as America hoped with the Quad Alliance. So they're now, you know, and I see US, they're talking about maybe sanctioning India because India decided to abstain at the Security Council, have not put sanctions on Russia. You know, and it's just unbelievable, you know. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But thank you for the super chat. 229.
Yeah, and then that was another one. Okay, same one.
Yeah. So the far right. Yeah, the far right, I believe, are a big problem in Ukraine. You know,
I like how you shushed the word. That was shushed the word.
We can't say this word because YouTube will take the video down. But this far right is a problem in many countries, but the difference with Ukraine is they're kind of endorsed by the government. They have actual military units within the Ukrainian military, and this is one of the big issues Russia have, because it's those people that are attacking the ethnic Russians in the Donbass region primarily. And I can't read that because it's in Chinese, I think. But thank you for that super chat. It's appreciated.
顺子了， Soon.
Okay.
Grandson, it means. Anyways, NATO promised not to expand, and that's true.
They
Thank you very much.
absolutely did, and they broke that promise. And this is why I think that they have some of the blame to shoulder, because many people kept warning, academics kept warning, if NATO keep doing this, Russia will respond. And the warnings were ignored, and finally Russia have responded. Be it right or wrong, they have.
And that's it for Super Chats. So
very much apprecited.
Thank you very much.
So, how long have we been going, Matt?
We've been going an hour and 5 minutes. So we're over. We're doing good. Want to wrap it up?
I think so. Get some final comments.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about what's going on with you and what's coming up here, Lee? Will people put their final comments in? Anything?
Okay. So, I'm a little bit frustrated because of my treatment. I can't sort of travel around and that too much. So a lot of the content I make has to be here. And also there's a small outbreak of COVID within Shenzhen. Yeah. So it's also making it difficult for Ollie to travel. We've got sort of, I think there was 25 cases yesterday. So there's sort of selective lockdowns. They seem to be handling it very well, but there's lots of free COVID testing stations all over the city. We've got some interesting content coming up on the channel. So Oliver has a friend similar age to himself who's been trying to get to China. He's coming here to teach, and he landed in Shanghai 3 or 4 weeks ago. And he had to do 3 or 4 weeks quarantine, but he's finally out of his quarantine and he's in Shenzhen. Now, this is a guy who's never been to China before. He's quite a young guy. So Oliver's going to do some interviews with him as he spends a bit of time in China to see how his...
You're a robot, Lee. You're a robot. Cyber Lee. Lee, you're going to have to reset, I think. Why don't you jump out and jump back again? I can't. You're frozen. You're frozen. Okay. Well, Lee gets his stuff together. Let me go here. Die Zero. Sorry, could you read my super chat? I didn't see it, Die. If you make a comment again, I will put it up. Lee, you're back. Try to say something.
Hello.
I can hear you. You're back. You're buffered. Okay. You're buffered back. That's cool. Yeah. So finish what you were saying. You were saying so Lee's going to follow around his new.
So Ollie's going to have some stuff on the channel with this guy who's come to China, a young guy for the first time, and how his opinions differ, or how he sees it now he's here in China compared to when he was in the UK reading the media about what China was like. So that will be some quite interesting comment. I think Oliver's setting up a couple of interviews and they'll be up on the channel too. I've got my health update one coming, and I'm possibly planning to do one about the Paralympics as well. So that's the sort of content I've got coming. And I hope you're all following Matt. Matt's changed his thing. He's now a van lifer, and he's got some really interesting videos, haven't you, man?
Yeah, for those of you that have seen the Gio Nation, which is my main channel, and you're sort of wondering, what's going on with this guy? I will be traveling, but I am in the process of doing the beginning phases of a big project, and that sometimes it's different for some people, and I think people are sort of like, what's going on? But I'm covering the build of the van into a studio, a home on wheels, and podcasting lounge. And my plan is to take this van when it's ready and drive it around North and South America, into Europe, Africa, basically continue my world tour, but do it in the van. And as I travel, allow people that I meet around the world to come in there and tell their stories. Inside the van, I'm going to have really good quality audio, really good quality video, and a really comfortable place for somebody to sit down and have a coffee or a beer, and then they can share with me their story of their life. And so that's really what I really wanted to accomplish before the pandemic and before all of this craziness. So I'm sort of trying to get back to my roots instead of cycling, doing it in the van. So, yeah.
So when do you think your van will be completely ready to go before you start that whole thing? Because I know you're working, you've been working pretty hard for the last 2 or 3 months, getting it all fitted out with all what you need. When do you think that will be finished and you'll be ready to go?
Well, originally I wanted it to be ready. Like I was thinking, a couple of months, no problem. But you know,
it never works out like that, right?
It's sort of just become really awesome because a lot of the technologies that I've been able to integrate into the van via sponsorships and partnerships are going to be amazing. Like this van is going to be really, really stellar quality. And so I think that I'll probably be ready by spring. So in springtime, I will go. And for those of you who are wondering about Annie and my life in China and my connection with China, I still love China and I still have family in China. And I will see my daughter and Annie, and I will see those people in my life. It's just right now I'm continuing my journey. And for those of you that didn't realize that I had a life before China, yeah, that's what I did. I had a life before China too. And I'm just trying to continue my traveling moments. We had a few super chats though. So do you want to show those and then we can work those in?
Yeah, if you can pull those
here
up,
we go.
yeah, that'd be cool.
Although Russia is not correct, but the real reason is NATO and the U.S. So far, all developed countries try to destroy Russia, but most developing countries show different attitude. That is so weird.
I think there is a big difference between the predominantly Western nations and the developing nations. A lot of the Middle East, I think from a point of view of the Middle East, is they've seen and they've experienced a lot of the problems, and I think that's why they're very reluctant to condemn and sanction Russia, because they've had this on their nation for many, many years, you know, from the West, you know, attacking. So I think that's why.
We got another one here. Hey Matt, can you please meet up with Bald and Bankrupt? I would like to actually meet up with Ben. Did you see his video, Lee, where he went into Ukraine?
I haven't watched it, but
it's a good video, man. He's, for all the people like love or hate him, and there's a lot of people that don't like him. I like his, you know, I like people that disagree with me in ways. I really enjoyed his trip into, because you know his video prior to that. And for those of you that don't know, he's like a travel vlogger that goes to different countries. He speaks really good Russian. He's from the UK originally, but he speaks a lot of languages. And he really, really well. And so he went into Ukraine with this attitude of there's not going to be a war. This is all blown out of proportion, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then he was in Kyiv as stuff started to go crazy.
Yeah.
And so he had to escape on a train, and one of the last trains out of town. And anyways, I would like to meet Ben if there was an ability for that, but no plans.
I need to watch that video. I must watch that because it was good.
It was good.
He's very, very good.
Yeah. We have some more. Let's see here. We have this one, which was just $20 from, I'm guessing, Andrew131. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
And then there's this. Let's just shotgun approach these. Okay, Lee, just like a couple of sentences, and then we'll go through a few of these. First of all, that person's name was not grandson, so I'm sorry. I just plugged it into I plugged it into my phone, so I'm not going to claim that I know Chinese any better than I do. Not like other people, anyways. So there's that. So sorry. Cyrus Jansen really disappointed me on his analysis, and I have been speaking with Cyrus, and I think you've been talking with Cyrus too. Everybody has their thoughts and their opinions on something, and I don't think I agree with Cyrus in most of his analysis, and I know a lot of you don't agree in a lot of ways. So what do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I don't totally agree with him, but I respect that he has his opinion, and I I think looking at his comments, a lot of the people do respect. I think it's okay to respectfully disagree with somebody else's opinion. And I actually think that's a big problem in the world today. There's too many people who are not prepared to tolerate someone else's opinion.
Dissenting opinion.
And I think that's a big problem. You know, to attack people because they have a different opinion to you is wrong. I think it's fine for people to have a different opinion, and you don't have to agree with that opinion. But to start personally attacking somebody, I think is wrong. I'm not saying Duck Lee is attacking Cyrus at all, but I see that on some of the comments in our videos when I make an opinion that people will personally attack me, and that's not right. I'm entitled to my opinion, as you are, as Cyrus is, as everybody is.
Everybody,
And I think it's good that people voice their opinions, because that's how situations ultimately get resolved. If nobody does, you'll never resolve situations, you know?
Yeah.
So that's my take on that.
How about this one? Does China benefit from this war? What do you think? I think if they can broker some sort of a cooperation between and simmer down tensions, I think that they could benefit. But otherwise, I don't really think so. What do you think?
I think economically they can.
Economically, they could benefit. Striking deals with Russia and.
Yeah, I think if you look at Russia, are pretty self-sufficient as opposed to energy and food, but where they rely a lot on the West is for consumer goods. Now, I think, you know, there's going to be a big hole in the market. There's all these sanctions by the West. Where they're going to go? I think China will benefit from that, and I also think China will benefit because they will. I think they will fill any gap of people who don't buy oil from Russia. I think China have an insatiable appetite for oil, for industry, for stuff. So I think they will step into that breach there, and they will buy that at a discount to the market rate. Oh, hello, Simon.
Hey, Simon. Shout out to the bus drivers in Ukraine still holding the fort down. Brave legends. That's true. Anybody. It was just like China when everybody was cheering for the food delivery people who were delivering food. It's not exactly the same. I mean, it's much different. There's different forms of risk, but the people in Ukraine who are, you know, helping people get to where they need to be at this point in time, they're heroes for sure. What about this one? There are some China influencers who said they hope Putin can use a nuclear bomb. Let Western countries know China and Russia are the greatest countries in the world. Well, I don't agree with that. I don't think anybody should be using nuclear bombs.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few netizens who have been very pro-China, but I would say from being in China, most of the sort of feeling I've picked up that people are more just concerned about the safety of people in general, and especially obviously there's a big concern in the Chinese community about the Chinese in Ukraine, you know, because there's about 5,000 Chinese citizens in Ukraine. But I think generally from the people I've spoke to, they in China, they don't like war, they don't like the thought of war, and I think their concern is for the people, you know, on a humanitarian front. So obviously you're always going to have these people who are sort of a bit more extreme, but I think it's certainly here in China, it's the minority of people.
I bet Matt doesn't miss the VPNs. No, I don't miss the VPNs. Okay, what else?
Yeah, that's an issue.
It's just something got to live with. Let's see if we got any more super chats. I see a couple of colors here. Respect Cyrus's views, even though I don't quite agree with him. Support him. Okay, that's nice.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'd say too.
We got a VY super sticker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I think most of these are for you on your channel. I don't know. It's funny. I looked at the view count. I'm like, wow, 739, and then I go to my channel. It's like 40 or 60 years.
Oh wow!
Like I've got some growing to do.
This is the first stream we've done for a long time. I mean, guys, I do appreciate it. I'll put this towards my medical treatment. I've got quite an expensive one coming up. I've got radiotherapy is going to be about 50k RMB. And strangely enough, I don't know why, but it's actually turned out to be the the most expensive of all the parts of the treatment.
I was very surprised when you said that.
Yeah, I've got to have 5 to 6 weeks, and I have to go 5 days a week for that 5 to 6 weeks. But it's really expensive compared. It's more expensive than the whole stay in hospital and the surgery combined, which just blows my mind. I have no idea why.
It's crazy how certain things are. I mean, I would have thought that the actual chemotherapy would have been the most expensive, but
actually, that's been relatively inexpensive compared to what I thought. But one of the reasons is that because the chemotherapy drug I'm using, it's actually a 20-year-old drug, but it's apparently the most effective against breast cancer. And I've used a generic one, so it's a Chinese one. So it's relatively inexpensive, which is great.
I'm trying to find this comment, Die Zero. There's people talk too fast in this chat, and I just can't keep up.
Yeah, the chats are going
because I told you that I was okay. Fun fact, I think this is it, right? Fun fact: in the last 6 days, there are 136 civilians got killed in Ukraine. But I remember your post. I remember that was a super chat from way in the beginning. But there are 258 that have killed by gunshot in the USA in 3 days. Yeah, I mean that's the whole point of the balance and hypocrisy in sort of different things. So
neither of them are good, So
neither of them are good. Yeah. Okay, so thank you. Now we're good. Now we're caught up. But I will be doing a lot more content. Actually, when the van is set up, I can sit in a parking lot, set up some audio, and I can actually record opinions on Nuance. So Nuance is actually going to expand quite a bit when the van is finished, and hopefully, maybe Lee, you've inspired me to start putting some more stuff on Nuance. If you ever want to have a chat,
you should. Some of your videos on Nuance are really good because you do the more long form ones. Whereas
you love those long videos, Lee.
Yeah. On my Let's Talk About It, I've tended to go the opposite way and done sort of shorter ones, although the last few days there has been some longer ones. But if you don't know about Let's Talk About It, go check it out. Where I'm a little bit more political, sort of talking about current events and that. So, yeah. That's just another super chat coming.
Yeah, see here. It's appreciate your work. Check out Jimmy Dore. Oh.
Yeah, the Azov and C14. I would agree. These are a big problem. Really big problem.
What is the Azov C14? Is that the N-word group? What is that? Is that the?
It is an N-word group.
Okay.
Yeah.
I jumped from Lee's channel to show you some support. You're welcome. Thank you, Yo-Yo. I appreciate it. Although, listen, I don't. Lee needs Lee's on going through his situation, so I'm not jealous in any way. I'm just sort of. It's funny to see so many people in this stream, and like 90% of them are over there. But thank you, Yo-Yo. I appreciate it. So you want to wrap this up?
Thank you very much. Yeah, so as I say, I think people have got a pretty much idea of my sort of stance on this situation and yours too. We differ slightly.
Yeah.
I would say that, I don't agree with war and fighting in any force. And I just think I think all countries should be making the utmost effort to bring negotiation and peace. Seeing people killed is just not a good thing. It's just not.
I just shared my channel in the chat, and then if Lee, I think everybody knows the Barrett channel, but there you go. Somebody asked about it, but thanks, guys. It's been nice to actually get on. Thanks, Lee, for sort of dragging me on here because you were like, you know what? I went on a lot quicker than you thought. You're like, do you want to maybe tomorrow do this? I'm like, how about now?
Man. We'll have to do it again. Maybe I'd be interested to sort of chat to you about the sort of how other things are perceived in the States as regards to China, because you've been back in the States now and talking to you for the 8 months you've been there. the conversation is slightly different to when you were here in China. You're seeing things from different angle now. You spent some more time back in the US, I think.
Yeah. I've certainly evolved slightly while I've been here. I think that you can't go anywhere for a long period of time and not inherit some of the attitudes and evolve your perception of things. So if anybody wants to, they can leave in the comment section of Nuance and give me some suggestions on things that you might want to know about with regards to the perception of maybe that I can lend as a guy that's been in China for over a decade more and is now kind of spending a lot of his time in America. So yeah, do that. And otherwise, it's been nice talking to you. You look good. Oh, yeah. You look good, Lee.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So we're nearing the end. You know, I've got one more chemo to go, which I'm extremely happy about, and then radiotherapy. Then hopefully I'm going to be good. As soon as I'm done, I'm going to try and make arrangements to go and visit my family. I have a granddaughter, and she's 1 year old today. It's her birthday today, and I haven't seen her yet, and that pains me a little bit. You know, to have a granddaughter who I've never seen, and I can't wait to get back to see her. So that's going to be one of my first priorities once I'm done with my treatment.
You know, I wonder how many people have a list of their priorities, you know, because of COVID. You know what I mean? They're like, as soon as travel restrictions, like, I'd really love to be able to travel casually more back to China, but it's just very, very difficult.
It's just so difficult.
It's just such a, you know, you got to choose one or the other. Anyways, Jayo, Lee, and we'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.